Good morning and greetings in the spirit of Rotaract. Welcome to our discussion today for International Women's Day titled Her Excellence Pioneering Women in Service. My name is Mrs. Mauricia Young Thomas. I am the president elect of the Rotaract Club of Stabroek. So today we have a very dynamic group of women who we're gonna have as our panelists who's going to introduce. So currently we have our panelists. We have Ms. Grace McCalman, who is the president of Rotary Club of Stabroek, and she is an IT business analyst and a project manager. We also have our immediate past president of the Rotary Club of Stabroek, Mrs. Carletta Walcott Woody, a psychologist, and also we have Dr. Karen Boyle, Gordon Boyle, the Rotarian, who is currently a recently retired program manager from CARICOM, co-founder of Eureka Lab, health sector development, and former deputy chief medical. And last but not least, we also have a Rotarian D. George, who is in a Rotarian of Business of Hospitality and Tourism entrepreneur. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you. Thanks.
So today, we know from the week we had International Women's Day that was on March of 8th of 2023 of this year. So as our title, Her Excellency Pioneer Women in Service, along with the topic digital innovation and technology for gender equality. So from this, ladies, how would you say this theme applies to your sector of work? We go from this one end, from President Grace.
Thank you, Rotarian Mauricia, and it's an honor to be here in support of this initiative of your club. As you know, ICT is my field, so it falls smack on my lap, and it's very exciting to see all of the promotional information for women to join ICT, to join technical subjects in general. Particularly, I know that it says gender equality,
Yes.
but I feel it needs more to be gender equity, because women, we need something different. Girls need something different. And while IT provides a lot of information, there's a big difference in protection. We need protection for young girls because it kind of exposes them to what happens online, and there's bullyism and harassment and so on. So it means a lot to bring awareness to the possibilities that IT can bring for young women. When I put on my other hat of Rotary, I think for all of us, it's really an honor this year to have the first Rotary president to be a female, Miss Jennifer Jones. And so that reflects Rotary's resolve for diversity and equity and inclusion. We have in our club a past assistant governor, and at the level of the district, we have females who have been district governors. So now to have at the top a female, it's very exciting for all of us.
Thank you so much, IPP Carla. To the questions of my
Yes, I agree. First of all, because that was a statement I was going to make around gender equality, we first need gender equity, and even the theme digital. Yes, it is access to information and through the internet, through the World Wide Web, is powerful. But that same access brings a layer of violence to women and girls, because in my role as a psychologist, as a therapist, I have worked intimately in the space where the internet and all that's related therein, even though it's a very positive influence in terms of access, it has been a very negative experience for women and girls. I have sat in family court, domestic violence court, people asking for order of protection because of people using the internet to share first information, very private and personal and intimate information, as a tool. It is weaponized against women and girls. And then I've sat in spaces where girls are lured into sex trafficking, sex work, because of their little access, unguarded access, and uninformed access. So for me, this is a way to raise awareness around education, how you use the internet, the positive side of it, and then the negative, the downsides of it. So for me, this year, this month, I've begun to raise awareness around this access to information through the internet.
All right. That's Karen.
Thank you. I would just add that in the arena of health, the fact that we now have digital access and digital health and e-health means that the supply of information for women when it comes to health issues is practically limitless. I think where we have a lot of work still to do is the empowerment of women to reach for that supply of information, and not just any information, but credible information, being able to discern what is true, what is false, what is propaganda. And then women taking the next step after getting information, actually going out and pairing that information with actually seeing a physician. Because I don't want us to ever think that e-health or reading about something online is going to take the place of having that interaction, consultation with a physician. So that's the danger of it. So I think it's really wonderful that we have the information, but I would love women to be empowered now to take that information to guide themselves, but then ensure that they still go and seek their annual wellness checks, for instance. The fact that the media is out there, even the influence from the north, and the type of programs we get there, should be encouraging women to have their annual wellness checks. We have to have a whole mindset change in Guyana. Digital health will help that in terms of us not just going to see a physician when we're sick, but going when we're feeling perfectly okay, but because we know it's time for our annual checks. We're feeling well, we want to stay well. And the key in health really is early detection. And so you may not be feeling any signs or symptoms, but having that annual check would help you to detect problems early and possibly cure them. So digital health is certainly going to be a tremendous help, but it's not the solution, it's not the end all, it's a tool. And I'm looking forward to more women using it and engaging it in the most empowering way.
Thank you so much for that. And we have Rotarian D.
Thank you, Marcia, and it's wonderful to share this panel of lovely ladies of Rotary. So, within the field of tourism and hospitality, we won't exist, and we would not have come to where we are today, and how we've progressed had it not been for the massive influx of technology and innovation and excitement in this space. The world, as one of the books would have said, is just completely flat. As a result of that, you sometimes don't even need to experience a country real time. You can simply do it sitting in your living room somewhat. So our industry completely embraces this entire concept. Now, how does that relate to women in particular? We have always known that we cannot exist without technology. The women within our organization, there's no need to convince them otherwise. We know our guests and our clients before they arrive. We engage before they arrive. They find us before, we even have had the first conversation, and we cannot imagine existing in business without that aspect and component. So it's a given, and it's just a matter as we remember this special month, as I.P. Carlotta said, is merely to give credence to the fact that, and appreciation for the advantages of it and all that it brings.
All right, thank you so much for that. And next to our next question. So, how would you describe your journey in your professional life and your success thus far, and may I add just the end, the challenges that you have encountered before you reach that success ladder. IPP President Grace.
I'm laughing a little bit. You'll hear why I'm laughing.
Go.
So, my journey has been great. It started at university, actually. Always the inquisitive person, and so at university, I hung around the lab and tried to figure out how everything works, even though I was in the computer science program. And my interest in IT really grew when I always remember I saw a big man cry because he lost his thesis, or he thought he lost his thesis on his floppy drive. And I went home that night, I could not sleep because I wanted to help him. So I got into data recovery at that time, and then having completed university, I came back and I was at Gaisuko. Most amazing experience at Gaisuko, Public Service Ministry, NIS, and GRA. So it was a wholesome experience, except that IT and politics do not go together. So if at the level of IT there's a decision to be made and it's technically sound, and there's a minister or a senior person who doesn't believe that it should be so, then it proves a problem. And why I laughed is because I remember having to provide a paper to the then Prime Minister to explain why the UPSs had to be 220 volts because they're so large. And that is something that everyone in IT knows. But it was difficult in that regard. But I think the joy comes from knowing the impact that you have on national development. And so I feel like I was in the right place at the right time all of the time, because for Gaisuko we were implementing systems for the factory. When I went to GRA, it was something to do with customs, and so I always fall in, I feel, when there was some mini crisis, and I help to rectify the situation. So in that regard, I've really enjoyed being in the field of ICT, and I see great potential for young women to follow in my footsteps. I know young girls are not necessarily jumping up and down about math, but that is why we have to create an opportunity, create the environment, and create initiatives for the interest to come.
Thank you so much for that, President Grace. IPP Carter.
Well, I think I took a very circular route. I started off studying social work at the University of Guyana, and I never practiced. I left Guyana, I came back, I said, okay, I got a job in administration, and I decided, oh, okay, let me go back to university, and I did business management and administration. And I stayed there for a while, and then again I migrated, this time for a much longer time. And I thought a situation presented itself to me, and I got employed at some place called the Virgin Islands Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Council. And I looked at that situation and thought, okay, I need a master's in social work. And I couldn't get a master's of social work on the island of St. Croix. I'd have had to go over to another island of St. Thomas. I said, okay, I'll just do psychology. And yes, that's where a lot happened, very significant in my life. And I always thought I was bold, and I trained myself to be brave. I affirmed certain things over my own life to make my own path. I knew instinctively, I knew where I wanted to get, but it wasn't very clear. I had to do some chopping down and moving things out of my way so I can get to where I wanted to go. And just surrounding myself with a community of brave women, of bold women, of resilient women that helped me to get to this place. So it was not that it was not full of challenges, but what I celebrate more often than not is the community that helped me to get to where I wanted to go, and my disposition of knowing that it is possible, and I can make it possible. And so that's pretty much, I started one place and I ended up somewhere else, but I still feel it's exactly where I want to be, exactly where I need to be in this field.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Karen.
So my journey is not dissimilar. Also very circuitous. Started medicine, and I worked in obstetrics and gynecology for 5 years, and I thought that was it. I loved it, loved doing deliveries, loved doing cesarean sections. But then I got pregnant myself. That was my third pregnancy, and I was very pregnant and still operating and having some challenges with that. So I ended up having to move from that surgical area to a clinic where I was quieter setting, 8 to 4, and fell in love with working with people with HIV. Did not feel I was fully equipped, so I did public health and I ended up specializing in public health. Didn't look back. And I think that's where I needed to be because I think that was my calling. So I've been practicing more in public health, which is looking at projects, project management, worked with USAID, Global Fund, had my own NGO, founded Eureka Labs 1995 and still going strong. And then I was at the Ministry of Health looking at chronic diseases, then later the Deputy Chief Medical Officer. And most recently I was at CARICOM where I had the great opportunity of working at the regional level, working with ministers of health across the region. So that was very rewarding. I'm recently retired after 33 years of nonstop practice. And so now I'm looking at the future and let's see where that takes me.
Thank you so much. And Rotarian D?
Yes. So, I always say I'm a woman in business now, but business found me. I didn't seek it. So after being trained as an economist, which was my first degree, and getting into the world of work shortly after starting a family, and choosing, well, we talk about being pregnant and being forced to make decisions. So then you choose to stay with this young human. You know what I mean? And then that's when business found me because you can't stay still. Like I could never stay still actually, and that's when you start to think business and you see. They always say, find where there's a need and make a business from it. And it was there. It was just at our feet in terms of what was happening in the country at the time, and property investment was low hanging fruit. And it's as a result of property investment that actually lured me and us into the direction of what my core focus is at the moment, which is Herdmanston. And the building was found, and it needed to have some bit of activity in it, and it just mushroomed into a hotel environment. At the time in Guyana, it was a bit, persons weren't visiting Guyana out of fear of what was happening at the time. It got started in 2005. And the focus was, okay, well then we'll provide that safe space that persons can always feel that they can be at home and be treated well, just as if you were at home. And that is what motivated me to really take care of visitors during that period. Guyanese weren't returning for funerals and weddings. It was purely business travelers. And we had a responsibility, and we took it seriously. And so now we're 18 years old this year, just for that, but have been in business for the past 23 years beyond that. Raising kids during that period, navigating that like it's nobody's business. Sometimes you just don't know what you don't know, and you just feel, oh well, you're a woman, and you can take it on, all of it. Rotarian Karen just asked, how are the girls? I said, the girls don't seem to need me anymore. And she says, well, then you did a good job.
Yes.
But
That's the whole idea.
but yeah, it's been a journey, and it's been a wonderful journey.
All right, great. Thank you for the responses, ladies. So we know that this talk is a collaborative initiative by Rotary and Rotaract Club of Stabroek. So next, we're going to refer to service. So the next question is, how would you say you're inspired and called to service, and what keeps you motivated? And I can start. Well, for me, as you know, I am a part of the Rotaract Club of Stabroek, the vice president and president elect for the incoming year for the Rotary year. So for me, when I had started, I always loved volunteering and giving back to the community because I've been in places where I've seen persons in need and always wanted to make that difference for them. And when I had gotten the opportunity to, I grabbed hold and I went. Even though I was a bit, reserved and introverted, it was something that really brought me out to be more expressive, to reach out for not just for myself but others, and to really inspire that difference. And we know that our club is one of the second youngest club that was started in the 29th of July of 2016. So it's fairly young, but it's something I do see myself going on further, even to you wonderful ladies level, doing and making the difference. So I can start from you, Rotarian D. So how would you say, you've been inspired and
Fully inspired, but it seems as though situations always seem to find me. So I grew up in a house of Rotaract and Rotary. I think my sister has done the entire phase of Rotary. I don't think she did that. There was no Interact buzzing at the time, but she did the entire president of Rotaract. She lured my father into the whole space as well, so he became a Rotarian. And I was constantly being asked, when are you going to join? And I resisted it. And finally, I know I can't even remember, but in 2009 it was, I think we heard that there was this young club that was buzzing around that was just full of energy. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to go quietly into Rotary. Of course, you're invited. So I was, and then it just all started. But I have seen what Rotary has been. I probably could have rehashed every aspect of the four-way test because I've heard it all the time, and so I knew what it meant, and I've always been attracted to the projects of Rotary. So very often you may not see me at the meetings, but once there's a project happening, I'll show up. I'll pop up and give that support. Even to my kids, they understand that. They're like, when are we going on our next Rotary journey? They've gone to the Pomeroon as a result. They've really got themselves involved, and that's the aspect of Rotary that is very attractive to me, and will continue to be.
All right, great. Thank you so much. Dr. Karen, have anything?
Right. I'd have to say that I think I was a Rotarian at heart before I became a Rotarian. As I mentioned before, the reason why I did public health was because I recognized the need. Persons living with HIV were being highly stigmatized, and a lot of things were going wrong, and we did not have programs that were designed to help. And I think it was just a part of me that said, I have to do something about this. And so, designing housing projects, micro enterprise, that's how come I met Carlotta, but things that I was doing before I became a Rotarian. And then I think around 2009, I became an inner wheeler, which is the partner and service of a Rotarian. And then I think around 2013, I became a Rotarian, and I joined our club about 2 years ago. So I think it was always a part of me, but I'm very energized when I see a problem and there might be something I can do. I think Rotary gives me a platform where whatever effort I would have had on my own becomes amplified because you're working in community with other like-minded people, so the impact can be greater. So I've thoroughly enjoyed being a Rotarian, and I'd like to hope that we're making a difference.
Yeah, we are making a difference.
We are.
I can just say that we are making a difference. I love using my life. I love service. As a member of a faith community, we did that all the time. And when I was invited to Rotary, and I saw the magnitude, how I can use my life, not only my life now, but my profession. At that time, I worked for the Institute of Private Enterprise Development, IPED, and I was in microfinance. And so coming into Rotary, understanding a lot about people living at the margins or even outside of the margins, because I was in micro enterprise and I understood that from being in the community and the work we did at IPED. I was able to then use that knowledge when I switched classifications, and now I'm a psychologist. There are so many programs we do in Rotary that calls for that specific skill, but it's not, so it's the profession. And then just because you're able to use your life, we sitting here, we have privilege, and sometimes just to understand that privilege and to come down to the community that you're going to serve and sit with them and say, how can we serve? Not we have come to do X, Y, or Z, but we are asking you, what is it you need from us, and we remain engaged in for our club. We serve a few communities, and we've remained with them for 15, 16 years from the time we've started, so that we build a relationship with the community. We build a relationship of trust, and so those are some of the things that inspire me and help me to inspire as well.
All right. President Grace.
Thank you, Maricia. So, as you can hear, lots of energy in our club, and we're just 16 years old, and 15 members. Small club, very kind of family environment, and small club but big impact projects over the years. I made a few notes, and I can't give you the long list, but significantly 400 water tanks, Kabakaburi. I'm just pointing out some of the really exciting projects that we've had, and if I miss any, you can bump in. I care for Kimbia children. They were even brought to town if they needed to see an ophthalmologist instead of an optometrist. Those opportunities were provided because we have a member of our club who owns an eye care facility. We built a house for Roxanne, if you remember, the prison warden who lost a quarter of her brain during the prison break. And it was an ergonomic home. I mean, I never built a house, but for Rotary, I was with my truck driving round and round sand and whatever and hardware store and all that, just because we wanted to make her comfortable. And we've had a lot of youth empowerment projects, to the point where the US Peace Corps had made a request to us, I think it was in 2016, to partner for a project called Camp Glow, Camp Bro. And what that does, it teaches preteens, life skills before they become a teenager. And so it's very, very fulfilling. I've got another one here, Life Skills Projects at Bagottville, where we produced women joiners.
Yes.
It was amazing to see women build a king-size bed, lacquer it, and it's perfect. We repeated that same project in Perfect Harmony. And pretty much our reading projects we've had going for over a decade, and the staying power in a community is what we enjoy. We just don't jump in, make a fix, help, and jump out. We do the needs assessment and everything and get a feeling for what the community needs, and we stay with them. Particularly for this year, we had a grand medical outreach coordinated by Rotarian Karen. 25 medical practitioners had gone up to Karifutan, and I think at least 300 persons were attended to. And again, we have a translation project for Indigenous language this year. That's going to be a big one. Watch out for it. We've had an entrepreneurship training project. Amazing presenters. I think if I had learned about that, I would have my own business today. But the experience was really amazing. We've got great persons coming and talking to young people who want to start a business, and every aspect, from the financial aspect to
From the conceptualization.
everything. Yeah, you did some
Yeah.
presentations as well. So we also have look at me now. And that's a teen girl empowerment project, which actually ties in with the whole theme of our topic today, to help teenage girls face their challenges, meet them wherever they need us to meet them. So we have a survey that's going to be done within the month, and this is in collaboration with the Rotary Club of Riverton. And last of all, composting. That's another big one for us this year. Really, really amazing. We partnered with Dr. Surendra to do a presentation, and all of a sudden we get to learn how many persons in Guyana are doing composting and embrace composting, and we now see the benefits, and we're starting with our interactors, and they are actually doing composting in school. Again, you'll hear about the results of that because composting takes a while. So we're all inspired. I've been inspired from day one because I grew in a family where my godmother, any little girl that she saw, then the family wasn't taking care of her properly, she took her in. So life for me always had 8, 9, 10 girls in the house, and none of them were my sisters, but they were my sisters because that's how she made us feel. So to be Rotarian, you've got to have Rotary in you.
The heart.
And then you join the club, but you don't join Rotary to become a Rotarian. You have to have the spirit of volunteerism before
Yeah.
you really enjoy, because you're not coming to take something out of it. You're coming to bring something.
All right, great. Now we're gonna go to directed questions. So, ladies, you can feel free to jump in. So this question is directed to IPP Carletta, mental health issues. So we know that this is a great taboo in the Guyanese culture, and many are not aware of the different scopes on which you may take. So I want to ask, like, what is your observation in this, and what steps and challenges you have encountered with this topic?
The first thing is lack of awareness that then builds the stigma and the discrimination because people are uneducated as to what mental health and mental health issues really are. And then our culture, we always talk about somebody do you, if you act in a certain way, it's somebody do you. Or we need to jar you or say a prayer for you or something like that, and that has to help. And then the other thing is you just got to suck it up. You just have to be strong. You just have to be positive, and you're gonna be okay. You're okay. Just say that you're okay. You're okay. So it's the silence, because we don't really know, and then that gives way to all of these behaviors and thoughts, right? And so I find that people are ashamed to come to say that I don't really feel well. I have racing thoughts. My stomach feels I really can't leave the home. Like my heart beats too fast. But they're not able to even. They're afraid to come and tell you that, right? And so it is the shame. I've had a young man say to me, if I had broken my arm, my parents will take me to the doctor immediately. But I keep telling them that I am feeling depressed and I don't want to go anywhere and I can't come out of my bed, and they don't want to take me to the doctor. And so this is what I have been seeing and experiencing. But, the more we talk, even this conversation we're having, I feel this is another opportunity. When we talk about mental health, we're talking about the way we think, affecting the way we feel and our actions, if we're able to manage those things, right? So when we talk about if we want to be wellness, we're not saying, just think about how are you thinking, how are your thoughts, what are you feeling, how are you acting, how is it impacting your day? Are you able to function? Just stop there. Answer those 3 questions. And so people like to use, she bipolar. We throw the terms around so easily, and that helps to cause people to be quiet, to be silent, and not want to come for help. So I want to encourage people to talk. Talk with someone that is informed. Go to your primary care and talk to them. your primary care, the person that, if you got a belly pain, you will go to talk to them about it and say, I'm not feeling that well, and explain what you mean, because it is just as I have asthma, and everybody knows that. I am not afraid to say I have asthma. But if I have a mental health issue, I'm afraid. So let's normalize these kinds of conversations.
Yes.
Definitely.
Thank you so much. We have a question directed to Dr. Karen. So with health. I know you mentioned earlier in the program we responded to the different health issues women have in the Guyanese society. So can you tell us a little bit more of what are these biggest health challenges that women face in society and how we can address them?
Yeah. Well, I think right now the biggest challenge women are facing is the challenge of obesity and the chronic diseases. Not to say that the cancers are also not huge issues. And with all of them, I think the biggest problem is late detection. Not realizing you have a problem until it has complications, right? So I would say first and foremost is changing mindsets and allowing women to recognize that your health, as well as pregnancies and all these things, you can take charge of and you can be proactive in. I also want to say that you should be in partnership with your physician. I think the mindset still is you go to your physician, the physician is almost like a demigod. Whatever they say, that's truth. What you should do, and what I'm encouraging women to do, is be informed. So you go to your physician with some information already. You can then fact check. The physician then makes it personalized because they're going to take your history, and you work together to figure out what's the best plan of action for you, individualized plan. But guess what? The physician actually has absolutely no power, because once you walk out of that office, you, the client, the patient, it's then up to you to decide whether you're going to follow those instructions, take the medication, start exercising, start eating healthily, or not. And so you can go back the next year to the physician and nothing would have changed, or you can take charge of your health and do the things that will make you better. So I'd love to see our women more empowered to take charge. Pregnancy doesn't just happen. Family planning doesn't just happen. You have to take charge of it, right? You find a lot of young women, if it happened, it happened. If I get pregnant, I get pregnant. But I would love to see us plan for families, plan for children. Do I have the finances to take care of these children the way they deserve to be taken care of? Versus, oh, the children have come, how am I going to feed them? Ask those questions before.
Is my body ready?
Yeah.
Is my body ready? That's the other
Have I
thing.
prepared my
You're
body?
supposed to be taking your supplements before you get pregnant to have the best outcome in terms of a healthy child with a great brain that's going to do wonders. So I want to see more of our women taking charge of your own bodies, your children, and the family planning issues. I mean, I'm not saying you do it alone. Family planning should be something you do in conjunction with your partner, but have a voice, have a say in it, because whenever you finish, it is your body, right? So empowerment for our women, and it starts with knowledge, getting the information, and then being proactive and getting your family physician, as past President Carlotta said. Every woman should have their family physician that you go to on a regular basis.
Yes, thank you so much. So we have a question to Rotarian D. So we know entrepreneur in business. So what are the challenges women face in business, and how can we rid these barriers that are there?
So, very good one. However, so when I got started 20 years ago almost, the plethora of women's support organizations that we now have were nowhere to be seen. Was nowhere to be seen. You had International Women's Day. I don't recall. Or was I that busy? I don't recall. Sometimes we have to take pause and sometimes celebrate what we've already achieved. And whilst we don't stop and figure, oh, well, we've arrived, sometimes you just have to be appreciative of how far we've gone. And we have gone a far way. When I got going, there was no mentor. There was no sisterhood. You were operating in a very male-dominated environment. Thank goodness, I don't know if it was intentionally or not, the way I was raised is just go and get what you want. So I didn't see the fact that there were many men around as even a barrier. I would not even now, I sometimes struggle to really embrace that concept that, the men have been not encouraging, or, you hear that, but that has not been my reality. And I don't know if it's because I have always been in a position where I can make the decision. Maybe it's that. I have not encountered the few male bosses per se that I've had have been encouraging, and maybe I wasn't around for a long enough time to have experienced what I hear most of, and I'm grateful for that. So indeed, I do, however, will not minimize the stories that I hear. And what I have decided to embrace is the fact that women must seek others out. There's always one of us that is willing to hold a hand. And whilst you must be confident and bold. I think P.P. Carlotta spoke about that. She was just bold, and you have to be bold. You have to be very confident that what it is that you seek is out there, and there's always someone out there to help you achieve that objective. And a woman is waiting. We have lots of males around supporting us as well, but seeing that we are stressing and emphasizing the need to each one seek one, help one, be confident to find that woman. We're here.
Yeah.
And we have we're talking about technology. It's very easy to find us. Once a woman presents herself, she will avail herself to help. And even if we're strangers, one call to say, woman to woman, I need your help. And whilst we may not always have the answers, we can, or networking, that's why we all here. That's why we chose to stay in Rotary, because we have access. And whilst we may not, as a woman, have the answers to it, we can definitely find someone who can help. And so yes, the challenges have been there. I won't, again, minimize it, but you have to have that attitude of, I won't stop, I'll keep going. And I'm happy that 22 years on, there's so many women mentors around.
All right, thank you so much. Excellent. So we're on to our next question. So, President Grace, how can we ensure that women in the technology field or ICT is represented and valued?
Okay, so I have a statistic here that shocked even myself. It says the Gender Gap Report. I don't know if there's a more recent one than 2021. 14% of women technologists in cloud computing, 20% engineers, and 32% of data and artificial intelligence. And in Europe, 17% of 8 million ICT specialists are women. 17%. So that's a really small number. And considering that there's no physiological barrier for ICT, why is it that the numbers are so small? And so I can only speak for Guyana at this time. And I thought that, okay, so ICT specialists will not appear out of the blue. And so if our statistics are anywhere close to that, it means there should be an SOS call, because Guyana is completely in a transformative state right now, and ICT will play a major role in that. So we have to know, first of all, what we have. There needs to be a survey. What ages, what areas, what level, diploma, degree, doctorates, what do we have in Guyana? Who are Guyanese and who are qualified ICT specialists. And then we decide how we're going to deal with bottom up. And so the encouragement for young girls to do STEM in school and to dispel this myth of math being something so hard. I can say that my niece, who hated math, passed math, and nobody in the world would think but after the blazing, she passed math. So I'm thinking, well, if I can influence one girl like that, then anyone can influence
Yes.
girls in Guyana to take up ICT. And so it has to start from all systems. It has to be in the community, it has to be in schools. We have to get females on board, because there's an opportunity for us to be on par with males in terms of what we can do for national development. And I think traditionally we're balancers. You know, men have big pictures and they, oh, we should do this. And then it's the lady who has to say, well, did you consider that? Did you consider that? Did you consider that? And you put the two together and you have something grand. And so this whole concept of girls in ICT, it's not to say that we aren't appreciative of what the men have done. It's just to say that, look, we have an opportunity to make it better, because our brains are different, and therefore our perspectives come out a little different, but they complement each other, and in the end we can have a great thing. So my note here is that school programs that encourage girls, that's something that needs to be very significant. And maybe now that we're talking about this, maybe through Rotary we can think of something and join the bandwagon, because it's not sufficient for the government alone. It needs to be NGOs, it needs to be communities. What are girls doing? When we say gender equality in ICT, it doesn't mean that all the girls have internet on their phones, because they're just doing selfies all day and scrolling TikTok. I see it, I see it. So if we want to make this thing meaningful to them, we have to come up with something innovative that makes young girls use their phones to do something meaningful. And if we put our heads together, we can come up with something.
All right, great. Thank you so much. So we're coming to the end, and we have some concluding questions. And it's open to anyone to answer. So one of the first question is, what strategies can we use for girls and young women to help develop the skills and success in the workplace and their life? And I'm going to take a minute to answer. Anyone?
President Grace just
just
offered a very powerful
Yes.
yes, and
started.
yes,
Yeah.
and there is something we are already doing it in our club, Rotary Club of Stabroek, but we need to expand. It's going to the community, talking to people within the community. We have Camp Glow. And then we have this new thing that we're developing, Look at Me Now. And that is specifically talking to wellness, girls and their wellness and empowerment, and helping to mentor. And Rotarian D just talked about, the ones who would have already achieved, accomplished, just spending time mentoring and bringing the others along. So for us, I think it's a wider approach, and then going to the communities, working there with a small group, because from there, I like that concept that you talk about, each one teach one. And so even if our group is 20, those 20 girls in that community can then use peer education to help another 20, another 40, another 60.
All right, thank you so much for that. And I know during the conversation, we had spoke about, as pioneers in your respective fields. You probably have touched on it. So I'm just going to put it out there. So in your respective fields, what do you see like most promising, and the trends and the potential in which improvement for young women and girls in your sector, and how can we build on that to support that?
Well, in the health sector, the ratio of male to female is practically 1-to-1 when it comes to physicians now. And in fact, in some places, they're having more female doctors graduating than male. So I think we're probably well represented in that arena. I was going to talk about another arena that I stumbled into when my father got ill with cancer, and that's farming. So I'm a bounty contractor. I do farming, chicken farming, and I have Springdale Farm eggs. And really and truly, we're about 3%, if we're lucky, 3% of the farmers are females. So it's really a male-dominated area, but I think it has huge potential for more women to join. because, as you recognize, Guyana is an expanding country, and our president has said we're supposed to be the breadbasket for the region and so on. So there's a lot of potential for more women to join that particular arena when it comes to, and I think we have green fingers, a lot of us, in terms of the caring, especially of, plants and herbs, etc., etc. In terms of mentoring, that is huge. When I was working with people with HIV, that was one of the strategies we used. We worked with Jocelyn Dow, Pamela Fox, Elizabeth Hughes. They had their own businesses, and we were able to create apprenticeships where we got women to work in their factories, got skills. And what was amazing, there was one incident, again, a bit of a stigma question, and one of the women, my women, felt a bit stigmatized and ashamed. And I really admired Jocelyn Dow for taking the bull by the horns and calling all the staff together and making sure everybody understood it would not be tolerated. And so my women felt safe in that environment where stigma was not going to be tolerated, and they were able to complete their course and graduate and everything. So there is a huge capacity for women to mentor and help other women. And so those who are in privileged positions, who have businesses, should be looking out for the younger ones and pulling them along, because we got a long way to go. Whenever you finish, it really is still a male-dominated world. And if we don't look out for each other, I don't know who will.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you so much for that. So as we go in long time, we'll just take a minute for each of you to respond. So we're going to ask, what gives you hope and inspiration in your field, to continue on? Because I know you probably mentioned it throughout, the conversation. And what are the greater opportunities you see for equality for the young women and girls in, your field? You can.
I can bounce off. As I listen to Rotary and Karen, my reality has been different in so many ways, and sometimes I think I need to take pause to really reflect on that. About 85% of our team members happen to be female. So maybe in a way, sometimes I am really not in the world, right? And it's not because that I particularly have said that is how we ought to do it. It just have happened like that. And the thing is, so when we celebrated our moment for March 8th, and the guys in front of the house did the serving, and we could see them deliberately stalling to hear what we were discussing and things like that. One of them couldn't help himself. He said, I hope that when it's International Men's Day, he's young in the organization, he hoped that the same would be done. So I said, it's up to you. Would you like us to help you to plan that as well? So, but the thing is, I say that because of my reality, I have seen the strength of the presence of women. I have seen, as I said, I'm particularly grateful of where we've come. And believe it or not, I probably might have some pushback, but that's as rebel as I can be. I am convinced that we actually have to look back. So I usually say each one teach one, and then I coined each one seek one, because sometimes we just can't wait for the girl to come. But then I had to tweak that recently. Each one seek one for him, because we have to now as women, actually, as much as those statistics reveal, as you revealed, President Grace, the gentlemen need help. So when that team member said to me, will we have one? It's just so happened that we are very dominant in certain areas. We have certain skills that, whilst men may not want to admit, and I would use that very loosely, some do, we have to now use that skill set to actually help our menfolk as well. Because we are empowering this generation of girls so much that the boys who are now coming up are not being mentored by the men the way we have been mentoring our girls, and they really are struggling. And so it will be our responsibility to also help those younger boys. Now, example, we had a head boy within our school, our alma mater, and I said to him, you know, what help do you need? And he said, what I would really like is to have more men come to do what all of you women are doing for us. We want to see the men. And that's when I realized that sometimes we can be very arrogant and we show up once the call happens. But the men, the boys, want to see boys. We can't always be everything. That's an art. So that's something that I think we need. Whilst we're empowering ourselves, you can't take this energy away from us anymore. You know, when you wind something up, you're gonna go. We need to recognize that and take pause for the young boys who are coming up that need to know how is it that I'm going to manage with this empowered little girl or woman when she comes to that stage.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And as we are coming to the end, thank you so much to our four wonderful, lovely, dynamic women who are, you know, pioneers. And I'm greatly inspired today to tell you, and I'm sure many of our viewers are inspired as well, of all your great journey and all your response to the questions that may have been burning on some of our minds. So as we're going to end off, President Grace, would you mind telling the viewers of your upcoming projects and your social media for your club?
Okay, so our page is Facebook groups Rotary.Stabroek. And so the projects that I've talked about will be there. We usually post everything for our projects. And, you know, come on board Rotary is what I'll say to everyone, because we have our One Guyana initiative, which our president has created. And so once we make that perpetuate into every aspect of society, we have to make sure that it has a meaning at the level of the community. So great women go into communities and inspire ordinary young girls. Great men go into communities and inspire ordinary young men. I know we have Man on Mission and so on. Let's keep that going and apply it to both males and females. And we're going to find our balance at some point. But as Rotarian Karen said, it wouldn't happen automatically. You have to plan and make it happen.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you so much. And for our club, Rotaract Club of Stabroek, you can go on Facebook and just type in Rotaract Club of Stabroek, and we have all our information there. We have one of our upcoming project named Project Prism, where we are helping Tugville Primary School to revamp their libraries in terms of providing shelves and desks and, you know, paint and so on, so to be able to use that environment to study and be able to apply themselves better. So that's just one of our income, and we have more. So tune in. Thank you so much for tuning in to our talk today. And we do hope that you were greatly inspired as we were today with these beautiful young women here. So thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.